Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Wednesday, October 14th. There is about 10 hours left of Amazon Prime Day. There's not really a lot of sales going on. I got a few things. It did come to me as a realization that maybe my raid array, which has been not properly working and showing errors for at least 2 years now, if not closer to 4 or 5. Maybe it wasn't the hard drives that were failing, which there's still a decent chance that the hard drives are failing, they're old. But perhaps it is the connector card, the RAID card, although it's not really a RAID card, and maybe at a certain point, spending $500 on a single RAID card is the smarter move than spending $50 on a SATA 3 card that gives you a bunch of ports and then has the computer itself handle everything. ZFS in particular seems to not really want you to use RAID cards, and I think in general going forward not using RAID cards is the right move. Let's reroll this, even though it's a decent chance that's going to just turn into something worse. But yeah, it could be that. So in the Amazon Prime Day shopping, I ordered a PCI Express to like 8 connector SATA cards to potentially replace one of the 3 cards in my current server and see if they are the problem. If they are good, it also lets me test out the new one. So mostly for the accountability section, I managed to get around to uploading just 3 things, and then I've been spending the rest of the time messing with this. Let's see, I guess we need Swordcraft or Shadowcraft victories on top of Portalcraft and Forestcraft victories. So yeah, I had my minimal CentOS Linux build, and then I copied it over to my server from my new NAS build, which is my old computer. So I copied the exact same basic Linux install over, and with Linux that's a lot easier to do and actually viable to do and all, compared to Windows, where it's pretty much impossible to just copy over or pull out a hard drive and move it to a new hardware, because Windows has just so much different drivers. Now inherently that might mean that your Windows build might run a little bit better compared to compared to Linux, because Linux is just using very generic drivers that don't have as much optimization or as many features. You probably will in Linux, if you were using it day to day and a power user, notice that there are some features that are missing, at least on the Windows graphical user interface. There might be some long-winded command line way to gain back those features, but it'll just never be as easy. So it is certainly a trade-off at that level. Let's go into rotation here and see if we can make a change to like Portalcraft. That shouldn't be too hard to do. Just take out that one card and that card, and then let's look at what this is all about. I see. Get rid of these, those aren't any good. See, puppets. Yeah, this is a puppet deck. Okay. So if we look at the new cards only, and then we type in the word puppet. Do we even have any new puppet cards? This one, which is put puppets in your hand. And if we created cards, same thing. So there is no puppet cards. So then it just comes down to what specific cards would we want to add. That probably doesn't have anything to do. That might work. See, a rush character, Scion of Desire. Probably wouldn't work there. Artifact cards, not what we're focusing in on this one. This scavenge probably wouldn't work greatly. You'd have to basically play it at the end of the game. Damage from effects going down to 0 is not as useful. Those are mechanical designs. It draws one card, so you can just always draw one more card. Interesting idea. One of those might not be bad. One of those might not be bad. So that's just gonna leave me with like this. Alright, so yeah, not much of a difference there, and doing work around that idea implies that the idea of having a puppet deck actually works in the first place in rotation, which we're not sure that it really does. It could be that the real meta winners are decks that really don't stick to any specific theme. Inherently, I think this is the growing problem with all collectible card games, is that there are kind of these pre-thought out theme decks in the minds of the creators of the game, and then there are basically way better decks always by just combining the best cards of multiple custom theme decks, and it's pretty much impossible, seemingly at least, to maintain any of that. We'll play this. Well, we'll die anyways. Might as well just not play anything, actually. So yeah, I've been going through Amazon Prime, although not very much, frankly. The Amazon Prime days over the past years have been pretty awful about their lightning deals, and then the lightning deals are pretty much the only thing that is relatively a good deal. Like, if I was gonna generically say what the good deal from Prime Day this day is that there are some Rokus on sale, and that's it. And it's like the old versions of it's like a year or two old versions of Rokus even, so you have to also take that into consideration. But everything else are things that you probably already have, unless you're just like newlyweds and you just got married. And frankly, if you're newlyweds and you just got married, you probably don't have money to be spending on Prime Day sales. So I am saving like $5 here, $2 here, things that I was going to buy anyways, or had a good chance that I was going to buy anyways. I had a bunch of things in my shopping cart in the hopes that maybe they do something like, we'll fulfill your shopping cart and give you everything you have waiting to purchase, but they didn't, of course, do any of that. At least I didn't hear of them doing anything like that. But there were 2 items certainly that were fairly unique and were on sale. I was shocked by that, but the TV I want to get, the bookshelves I want to get, I've seen no furniture on sale at all, and that's not surprising. I imagine furniture is just so expensive to ship and so infrequently purchased that there's no good deal to be had there. Garage sales are the place where you would get furniture if you just want it cheap, and if you want it to actually match and look good, then you pretty much just have to pay full price. One.
Now, let's have a look-see.
Let's see.
This town eats good folk for breakfast. Begin. I ain't dead yet. Hands up!
So yeah, there really hasn't been a lot of sales, and I haven't really been looking at it too much. My insomnia certainly helps with that, but there's just entire, like, probably you're talking 100 pages, 50 pages down before you can get even 3 hours ahead at looking at upcoming lightning deals to put them on the watch list to be notified when they go on sale again. There's just a ton of garbage. Unless you want to go through each category to sort it through, you just have to go through everything, and that really only gives me an hour. So the whole process really has been probably 4 times over the course of the 48-hour sales. I've looked, I've seen an hour or 2 ahead, I've seen, well, maybe this, maybe that. A lot of things are still fairly expensive to the point where it would not be reasonable to purchase it even at a discount price. So that's another thing to consider. So you play this, and then this will remove the effect on that, which will keep that on the field. And then end the turn. So yeah, really haven't gotten a lot. I tried to use, like, while working on my server, a USB hub that I had sitting around. Turned out it was probably broken, and so I got a new USB hub, and that's about the only just like frivolous thing at all I've gotten. Everything else is very much not a whim, and I'm still waiting to get a couple of big ticket items, a TV and bookshelves, and that's pretty much it. So yep. More and more Amazon Prime Day is just becoming an excuse for a vacation in a world where I don't really need excuses for vacations, and I should take as much breaks as I want. The other thing I did sitting around is ZFS RAID arrays, if you can call them that, have this process called resilvering, which is basically fixing all the data so that it is done properly. It's making sure all the data is sorted right. It was best described as like if you had a book and you took out all the pages and then threw them up in the air. Resilvering would be taking all the pages and putting them back in order and putting them back in the book. It tends to be a fairly long process. It was telling me 5 days it was going to take. Eventually it started speeding up and it said it was going to take like 1 day, but that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time for hard drives that would be constantly spinning, certainly. And the resilvering process has happened over and over and over again, attempting to get it right and failing. And there's a decent chance that it still will fail. And even if it succeeds, there's a level of that not mattering. What is dead to rights? Well, how can we do this? If we played this, it'll do 4 damage to everything and save me 1 turn. Or if we play this, it'll give me ward in Dead to Rights, which I can't play. So I think this and this, and then in the turn. Now, next turn, if I play this, I could potentially play Dead to Rights to him, and then start reducing his play points. Every turn, he'll lose a play point.
You will atone for wasting my time.
So now, every turn he's going to start losing play points. So 10 turns down, he may not be able to play the Eternal Whale. And then I didn't know it was going to bring this into the field. Interesting. Yeah, so I spent a lot of yesterday trying to just get a... See, well, I guess I don't have anything that can maneuver. Storm.
Hey, up for a game of frisbee?
Well,
what's your price?
that activated the maneuver ability. Didn't realize it was going to do that. Why is he not losing play points?
Here comes the tidal wave.
I guess it may not matter as much. But yeah, the resolving process is long, so I've been trying to make a script to turn it into like a loading bar that wouldn't be too impactful. Frankly, it's still fairly impactful in the sense that running the command to get the data even once every 100 seconds is a little too much. Hmm. Okay. We'll do this. And then we'll do this.
Flames to the fire. You're a solid fighter.
That was a really good outcome. I don't know if I got really lucky there, or if I just played fairly well there, but
Sleep enveloped in serenity.
but that was we exhausted all his cards, we exhausted all his abilities, and we defeated an Eternal Whale, which the Eternal Whales in themselves have been a hassle. So yeah. And so mostly I did get that loading thing, the loading bar script to work. But oddly it seems to have problems with the percentage sign. So like the percentage sign seems to be reinterpreted in the commands I'm giving it into some Unicode code or something, and I cannot just find a way to escape it. So it is slightly corrupting the information that I would like to present again.
Is fighting and despair all you know?
But I don't really, I mean, it's a minor little bug, but it's an annoying bug too, because you know people are gonna notice, and probably the command to get the information, there probably is some kind of internal command that is just not known to get the percentage done. And I'm not 100% sure I did the math right, because it's trying to find the number of characters on your screen and fit it into that. So instead of each dot representing 1 out of 100, it really should be each dot represents each dot represents 1 out of well, 1 out of how many of our characters are, which I don't know if that really is the best system either, because it's unintuitive. Come to think of it, there probably is a better system that I could do, where, because the percentage gives you like 1.01%, and it could be so incredibly slow that would make sense. So perhaps it would make more sense for me to make a loading bar that is 1 line long that equals the tens position, a loading bar that is then then 1 long that represents the 0.1 position, and then a loading bar that is 1 long representing the hundredths position. Yeah, that might work better, and that would be more intuitive. So I think I'll give that a go if I have some free time, which kind of at the moment I have all the free time in the world.
Welcome to the city of hopes and dreams.
And at the core of it, it still wouldn't really address that glitch, but that's all it really, that doesn't really matter. It's actually a very simple script. It's just a matter of testing and getting everything polished, and then I'm gonna try and upload it in once finished, or close enough finished. Certainly would make them the summon the puppet, then destroy random enemy followers. Okay. Let's see what this does. Put that in the field.
Welcome to the city of hopes and dreams.
And then do that.
Welcome to the city of nightmares and despair.
That. And then in the turn. But yeah, as long as my two computers are sitting there waiting for the old RAID array to get ready and copy the data over and eventually destroy the old array in favor of building a new one, there's not a lot I can do with that setup. There is a ton of stuff to do after that point. Let's go ahead and just play this.
The best of all possible worlds. Begin.
After that point, then there's a lot of work. There's a lot of rebuilding, a lot of just kind of starting over from scratch. I was able to get at least the server part of the iSCSI setup working. I don't know why I'm talking about all this instead of video games, but there frankly hasn't been any video game news once again. But the iSCSI was the idea of just sharing hard drives as hard drives, not as like files like you would do Windows sharing to another computer. This allows my old computer to basically only focus its RAM and CPU on giving access to its mini hard drives to my newer computer, which then it will treat each of those hard drives as an individual hard drive as part of a bigger RAID array. In a thought at some point that I might end up with four 8-drive servers that are all connecting to just one that just puts in a ridiculous amount of drives. It really makes me wonder how like the Storinator does it, where they have 100 hard drives in their setups, that they have to be using some level of hardware RAID array to get all that to work. That was unnecessary to have played one of those. Because at a certain point I feel like the CPU and the RAM and they all will just become issues. But then again, the Storinator is like a minimum $4,000 setup, which arguably, maybe over time, I have spent that much on my server just by putting things that were once used in PCs otherwise all together. There's also a Dexter limited time reboot apparently happening, which doesn't have anything to do with video games, but it's certainly questionable. Like, I really have to wonder the point of things like that, because I just don't feel like Dexter Dexter really needs to come back. It ended. I would also say Dexter was probably is one of these shows that is entertaining for the first view, but going back and watching all of it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And if you were to recommend it to somebody else, there's a very slow wind up for Dexter, and then there's probably a heavily annotated version of Dexter that you could watch. The idea of following a person who is a serial killer at night and a crime scenes investigator during the day, with the like early 90s HBO aesthetic too. It is it's a little much, frankly. I don't know how a new audience would enjoy Dexter. Or could enjoy Dexter. 3 puppets in your hand. There, 1 damage. Rush.
Do you know my master?
And then we could evolve it.
Sleep.
If you're my master, cleansing mode.
And that concludes today's
1,
sermon.
2, 3. Draw. 1, 2, 3. Alright, let's start talking about actual video game stuff. Let's see. The guy in charge of YouTube Gaming, who's kind of just been on paternity leave more than anything, and then the pandemic happened, so I don't know if he's really been working at all. Frankly, anybody that works at YouTube, the question could be asked, are they ever really working? But he tweeted out, Among Us has totaled more than 4 billion YouTube videos in September, which, yeah, that shows that Among Us is really, really big and popular. It also sadly makes a horrible statement. Like, it really makes a terrible statement as far as just the level of
Accept harmony.
what am I trying to say? Yeah, it's really a statement on like the level of flippantness, unfortunately, that exists around
I won't stop singing
YouTube video game content consumers, that they can go back and just because there's some, I assume PewDiePie or somebody like PewDiePie,
I shall give birth to a new world.
I assume somebody like that has been heavily streaming Among Us, and that has allowed all the other fad chasers to do the exact same thing, and now we have the outcome of that.
Why is it the string is so pricey?
Yeah, I've pretty much lost here. What I would need is something that would save the day, restore my health, and put that on the field.
You're a big fella.
And I can put that on the field,
You're a
and I can do this to kill that,
The world cycles on.
and I can do this, and I can kill that, and see if maybe that would be an invocation, but I don't think so. Yeah, and there's inherently, as a content creator, a problem with the fact that a lot of the viewers of gaming content are young kids or just flippant viewers, one or both, and because it really means for medium and small content creators, there's just no consistent audience, and that leads to some kind of major problems there, where you just aren't going to ever really be secure in the content you're making. I will fully admit that I have been looking at the videos that have come out for my Halloween month, and this might be an off year, frankly, but it's probably very consistent to last year, where nothing I'm putting out is really getting any comments or views, except for one spammer who's putting out comments and likes on Twitter, but he's putting the exact same comments, so you kind of know that he's a spammer. And just a bot for my 11th hour footage. But the Evil Within footage that's airing right now, nobody's seems to be watching, and that's a relatively new game, the Evil Within 2. So you have to take that for what it is. That, yeah, as a small-time YouTuber, people aren't really watching my content, not in any big numbers. On the other hand, there is this disconnect that apparently I still somehow do get like 30,000 views, I think it is, a month. Maybe it's only 3,000, but that seems like a really big number across 8,000 videos. And I don't know how many of those are just Lego Batman views, where it's not really where I want to be. It's just the only successful Lego Batman streamer, or only as only successful as a Lego Batman streamer. We have a Gamasutra article here. Blizzard workers in France called to strike over the closure of the Versailles? Is it Versailles? Yeah, I think that's how you spell that. I pronounce that, but Versailles office. We'll just pronounce it like an American. Versailles office, just in case. Let's see. Summon a Hornet Warrior. Summon a Duderfield Steed. Just hope that lasts one turn. Which, yeah, at the core of it, yeah, there's a lot of unions in Europe and France, and them calling a strike over the closure of an office sounds like exactly the right thing for a union to do, although it is also probably too little too late, because one assumes that one assumes that there aren't a ton of Blizzard offices in France or Europe, so unless there was several other larger offices that were striking over the closure of a smaller office, Activision Blizzard isn't going to care. At its core, Activision Blizzard isn't going to care anyways. If this is the people that are being laid off, striking, well, in France, the laws and protections there might be a little bit better. But I imagine Activision Blizzard still has done all the legal research they need to do to eventually lay off all these people, and maybe they'll have to pay them a little bit more severance than they would in the United States, where almost no severance is required in most states. But I doubt that a strike like this is going to keep an office in business. Amulets in play. Can we do anything to bring in amulets in play? This.
The forest abandoned me.
And then this.
Hey, let's play.
And then this.
I am Hey, let's play. You're done for.
I should have evolved this first and then attacked this.
Just don't.
Do come again.
Then I would have randomly done 3 damage to that character, but whatever. But yeah, Activision Blizzard seemingly in a pretty big downturn. They've lost, I think, the vast majority of their good staff, and now they are just turning into the next EA. And just like EA, I imagine they'll manage to hold on to properties long enough to make enough money to stay around. Unfortunately, if the equation is that that corporations are people, which is what they always claim, then the part around that would be that there's what? Random follower. Oh, these cards are, this card is terrible.
I know when I've lost.
Yeah. These are bad cards. I need to change that. Yeah, there's no equivalent for a corporation to trip and fall over and have a heart attack or stroke or just randomly die. And at a certain point, all societies are built around the idea of their citizens eventually dying and decaying. Like, a society does not work if people are immortal and they're having kids and the population is just constantly growing. In fact, I don't think a society would work even if people were immortal and they just didn't have kids, because there would just be this constant buildup of history. This is effectively what we are seeing with things like Twitter, where people who have been on Twitter and Facebook and services like that are getting called out for things they did when they were much younger, and now there's just a inherent lack of forgiveness or forgetting of young people saying things they don't even agree with anymore.
I just gotta break stuff, right? No!
So yeah, if you were to really embrace the corporations are people garbage as a concept, then there needs to be some kind of randomization that just shoots people, shoots corporations and has them have heart attacks, and just like, your number came up and you're bankrupt now. Like, we're gonna liquidate all your assets and give it all to your inheritors, your employees, your shareholders, just in a random movement. And there's very little logic that could be explained around an idea like that really wouldn't play amongst most people.
From the apocalypse to come.
But it does certainly allow businesses to exist forever. And I imagine we will see the same thing with like Disney, even though Disney is like hemorrhaging money and may shut down some of its may eventually I've heard no actual rumor of this happening, but I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually shut down a lot of their rides in their park and in some of their parks. But there's really little chance that at the end of the day we will get rid of those three. Yeah, there's very little chance at the end of the day that Disney won't still exist. Man. It is so hard to do three things at once these days. I used to be good at this. At least I used to think I was good at this, but now every time I stream, I'm like, man, did I not sleep enough, or am I just developing adult ADHD at this point? It's just like really easy to lose this thought pattern and stutter, and I probably was always doing this, and frankly, maybe I was just so incredibly zoned out at the beginning of my streams. Yeah, back when I was doing like Binding of Isaac episodes, that was probably a lot more of me going silent. Probably a lot of me just rambling and talking about whatever I want to talk about.
Time for me to prove myself.
And perhaps now that I'm trying to
Father.
think about things more and be more structured, that's where I'm dropping the ball. But maybe I'm just getting old, too. Old and tired. That can be the explanation for a lot of things, frankly. For anyone. Anyways, moving on. Dark Souls Nightfall has been announced as a fan-made sequel. We'll see if it gets DMCA'd. Almost certainly it would be. I don't know really why you need more Dark Souls. I don't know what the core conceit of Dark Souls is that's better than, say, making another Demon Souls, or making another Bloodborne, or just making the next game in those types of games. Particularly when you know that there's a lot of other games out there that have tried to copy that and to some level of success. Maybe not a huge level of success, but some level. Here we have a game on Steam called Brunswick Pro Billiards. It's been a long time since we've seen a billiards game. This one doesn't seem like it has the best of visuals on it. And honestly, I think I've seen some better ones. At a certain level, too, there's just no desire to buy more than one billiards game, considering how I didn't really ever play the first billiards game. So this is $17.99. Then it has in-app purchases, and online PvP, and that's a huge red flag. I couldn't recommend going down that route. Let's see.
What do we have here?
Do this.
I just want to fill the emptiness.
And this.
They're picking on me.
And then this.
Hey, let's play.
And then in the turn. Probably should get rid of this one too. It's not a terrible card, but its two options are a little weird. You really don't need to spend 1 mana to summon a Dutiful Steed. And you really don't want to wait till the 6th turn to destroy all the enemy followers.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Okay. Put the fairy in your hand. Can we evolve next turn? Just gonna end the turn here. Next we have a game on Steam called 9 Lives, which looks like it's a simplistic single screen Unity puzzle game. I don't know really what you're doing though. It seems like you're just trying to step on platforms to turn on fire pits to open doors.
Oh, come on!
It seems like that's a little too simplistic. It doesn't really feel like the puzzle's getting more complicated from the screenshots. It's coming soon, it's not even out yet. Oh, you stand on the fire and then that makes a fire version of you. And so then you have multiple lives. So it's like a recursive idea. Still not sure I like that. 2 Hornet Warriors. A ward. +2/+2 in rush. do this.
It might be dry, but it's home.
You're done for.
I'll look after this town for as long. Home, sweet home.
I just want to
That.
fill the emptiness.
For the town's
Good.
prosperity.
Mean.
Interesting. Well, that worked. I didn't know that was gonna work, but that worked.
For you.
Now we've got a bunch of ghosts. Gold Rush Ghost. What does this do? Randomly activate one of the effects. Same effect will not activate twice.
Run.
Summon an lurching corpse. Summon an arcane personal carrier. Draw a card. Gain 1 shadow. Deal 2 damage to enemy leader and restore 2 damage to you. Okay. Don't want to do that. This
Woodland
is the right
Fortress
move.
at 12 o'clock. Hey, let's play.
And that.
Let's play.
And then the turn. Next, we have a game on Steam called the Deja Vu Collection, which might be a hidden object game collection of some interest.
You complete
Because if this is like 3 or 4 games, wow, they've really done this in a weird way as far as the title. So if they can't even get the title right, that's questionable. $6.99, English and Russian. Yeah, for as long as it's called the Deja Vu Collector's Edition. That means something different, I suppose. I'll put it on the fall list, but also hidden object games, almost certainly not
My dreams are what kept me
not
alive.
something that are gonna make it to the
such
to
a
the
lovely couple.
wish list. Interesting. This character is playing
Well, I thought it
a
was
heavy,
impressive.
like mining ghost miners. Strategy. Okay. What do we want to do?
I shall give birth to a new world.
Best of luck to you.
Okay. Summon a fairy. Clash.
Yeah! You're mean!
Do this.
You're mean!
Thus the world begins.
Game of Sutra has an article here. My Games has bought a minority stake in the hyper-casual studio Mambo Games. Haven't heard of either one of them.
World cycles on.
My Games is the video games arm of the Russian company Mail.ru, so that sounds like we're potentially gonna get a bunch of low-effort Russian games.
No, literally. I'll show you. Looks like you've got another spirit. Well, I thought it was impressive.
Okay. Hornets. Hit that.
Can I haunt you
And
too?
hit that. Go ahead and evolve
It won't
this.
be long now. I'm so sparkly. Yeah.
And play that. We're wearing down the cards. Open Critic has an article here. Ooblets 0.4 Nowhere content update.
I'm
So
coming
Ooblets is kind of
for
the
you.
online Pokemon clone, 3D Pokemon clone that they're still working on. Version 0.4 should make that fairly obvious.
You're strong.
Before we read this next article, I suppose it is worth mentioning that I saw them talking about PlayStation backward compatibility, and while they said that they're basically, their statement boiled down to 90% of PS4 games and maybe PS2 and PS1, but not PS3 games, should be backwards compatible, but they're not certain. And they're telling you to make sure the game installs and plays the way they you like before you buy any new content online for those games. And they're saying that there might be minor glitches, and it will be up to their level of quality. So it's a lot of cover your butt speech.
I bring unto you serenity.
Whereas even if it was the exact same amount of effort that Microsoft has done to have backwards compatibility, Microsoft has done a much better job of coming out and boldly proclaiming that they will be 100% backward compatible. The games that they certify, they're willing to put their name behind it and speak with confidence, where PlayStation is not speaking with confidence and seems to not really care. And at the core, you have to wonder about whether Sony Interactive Entertainment, in their new California office, which one assumes that no one is actually going to at the moment, like, you have to wonder if they really do care or not, or if they're going to just drive the PlayStation brand into the ground. And I also have to wonder if the Japanese offices of Sony care anymore either. Speaking of California offices, the Giant Bombcast did happen this week, and
You're a big fella.
it does seem like nobody from Giant Bomb was laid off, so far at least. I wouldn't be surprised if there's second waves. I wouldn't be surprised if there's negotiation potentially happening
To die
in the
or
background.
not to die. To die or not to die.
So, yeah. I guess all you can really say is, at the moment, it seems like they're safe. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the Bombcast and the people on the West Coast are all safe, and then we find out that all the people on the East Coast have actually been laid off. Interesting. If I put this, I can't evolve it.
Biceps will usher in a new age.
So this guy will
All together.
potentially buff up my puppets, which then I can play this to keep them on the field. Moving on to the next story, TechRaptor has this article. The PlayStation 4 error WS37505 has broken online functionality. Now, what I would like to check here is what a 505 error might be, like as far as HTTP 505. So if I come over here, .505 as far as HTTP would be HTTP version not supported as an error. So that means that the PlayStation 4 is not programmed in its browser to have the version of HTTP that they're serving. Now, that either means it's claiming a version that doesn't exist,
Do you know my master?
or it's claiming it's trying to serve a very old version, because there really hasn't been that many versions. Let's see. Let's go ahead and hit this.
A fitting end.
1, 2, 3, 4. This.
Many at your service.
And in the turn. See, version 1.1 came out in 97. It was obsoleted in 1999. Version 2.0 was published in 2015. Version 3 is the proposed standard. And it's enabled by default in the latest macOS using UDP instead of TCP, which is weird. But let's see, HTTP was added to Cloudflare and Go and Google Chrome in September 2019. So that there are versions between 1.1 and 2.0, though. There was a 1.2, I'm fairly certain. I'm just reading Wikipedia at this point, but yeah. So either they've set up servers that are just communicating completely wrong, or the 505 error is not an HTTP 505 error, which is also a possibility.
100% string and 0% fluff.
So
A spin and a twirl and out. There's our puppy to
there we
game.
go.
Me a critter worth their salt.
In the turn. So yeah. My assumption here is that they've messed up their servers. Let's see. 505S or WS44369-6. These errors might be might have nothing to do with a 505 error, though. A HTTP error. I just assume that might be the case. But you can't see friends online. Friends list disappear entirely. Party chat is not working due to parental controls. Sorry. So yeah, that's a big mess. There's no reason that should have been allowed to be released in that state, and it just once again seems to be that there's a lack of care as far as making sure your online works, and that's a fairly consistent problem that's existed with
Why is it the string is so pricey?
that guy is really doing a Mario Brothers Italian accent. Okay, let's do this and then do this.
If I were
Do this.
Canary.
See, I wish I could keep a running count of how many allied people have been in my hands, and how many allied followers have died. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here. Transient for PC launches October 28th. Transient is kind of a big word. You don't use it very often. It'll launch on Steam. See if we can kind of get a general idea of what this game is.
War is the most sacred act.
This Transient, kind of like an attempt at a Deus Ex type game, Cyberpunk type game. is it a horror game? Is it the newest horror game from the people who made?
Eyes close as the
It might
curtain
be.
falls.
It may not be so much a horror game as a
Got 'em in my
investigation game, but yeah. All right. This guy.
Biceps will usher in a new age.
And then evolve.
Begin.
Abs more cut than dying sword.
And then this.
Do you know my master?
Time to get
And
cut.
this.
Time to retreat.
And in the turn.
Protein time.
And buff all those characters up. In a weird way, Transient might be one of 2 or 3 games that actually come out that are even at like indie quality, although perhaps we need to introduce a concept of a AA or a AAA quality indies compared to just, oh, this is a low effort game creator that's selling and is technically independent. Until I could think or the world comes to an agreement on some kind of standard like that, I think it's probably easiest to say, yeah, there's probably only been 2, maybe 3 B tier, even B tier quality games that have come out or are going to come out in October. I imagine we're getting 2 or 3 at least B tier quality games that are going to come out. Let's see. Storm.
Up for a game of frisbee?
Kill that.
It was an act of love.
Do we want to kill this? Or do we want to evolve?
Activating system interface subroutine.
This. And this. TechRaptor has a review here for Onichambra Origin, which is the cowboy hat wearing, feather boa wearing, bikini clad samurai girl with who kills zombies. Although there's also a secondary character in the very, by modern standards, very kind of plain and basic schoolgirl type outfit, sailor outfit. Says combat is much better this go around, which is interesting because that has been kind of the problem, is that Onichambra did look interesting as a kind of a hack and slash game, but then probably didn't play that well, and it's been only one other Onichambra game is on PC, so you would have to revert back to probably PlayStation to play the other versions. You can see TechRaptor here says, gives a 6.5. Onichambra Origin isn't a great game, but it has much more fun combat and smooth visuals than the previous entries in the series. Pros are fast-paced action, improved visuals, combat is actually fun, and unique boss fights. Cons are repetitive gameplay, and it's still outdated. So, I would be willing to give TechRaptor writers the benefit of the doubt and not just immediately jump to an assumption that they just don't like it because it's gore and it's violence and it's just dumb fun with bikinis. And I would be willing also to believe that the dumb fun with bikini girls concept probably does open up. Let's see. Something has to cost at least 5 play points for this to work.
Sleep.
Abs more cut than dying sword. Time
So,
to get cut.
do that. And one, two, 3.
Love me a critter worth their salt.
My armor's been pierced!
Protein time!
Darn it. Didn't move fast enough.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Well, I just lost there.
Perhaps
But we're still not doing terrible.
armor's been pierced!
Still not doing terrible. Okay. But I don't know if I'm over focusing on actually playing the game instead of covering the news. Let's try and refocus there. Let's try a little sword craft. Next we have a game called Axiom Alternate, which looks like a visual novel game. Doesn't look very interesting visually. It's 59 cents. It's English only. It has 19 achievements. It's probably an achievement game. This is an interesting listing we have here. Golden Axe, a canceled prototype. Golden Axed AXED is a single level of a Golden Axe game that was canceled. It's going to be available apparently only for one day on October 11th. And there's no, on October 18th. It's already past October 11th. So this might be free, but then also it kind of makes no sense that it be released for free on that one day, and that's the only day you could ever have it. It's also weird that even even for Sega to spend $100 to list a demo like that seems weird. It does seem like it is just kind of a weird advertisement. There is something, I don't know about in Japanese copyright law, but there is something to American law about somebody ripping off your copyright of an unpublished thing versus a published thing, the amount of damages you might get. So I wouldn't be surprised if there might be some legal reason why you would publish something, but that doesn't inherently mean that you have to sell it on Steam. You could easily just publish it on your own website for free, or for like $1 or something. And it probably isn't worth going through a lawsuit to just try and get a few thousand more dollars on something, on potentially a copyright infringement case. What I imagine is happening is there's this Go Sega anniversary event, and they're just going to try and use it as advertisement. We have another game here called Streets of Kamurocho, which looks like a beat-em-up game.
The resplendent phoenix graces you with her
There
presence.
apparently seems to be a new one, so I'm going to put it on the fall list. But
You wouldn't. Bottoms
I'm not
up.
sure if I really want to play any of the beat-em-up games. So, let's see what they really have got. They've got some Total War games. They've got some other kinds of games. Sonic the Hedgehog right now is free to play. 2 Points Hospital seems to be free to play. Let's see. I know Nights into Dreams also was free to play. Bayonetta is selling for $5. That's not bad. Catherine Classic for $10 is not incredibly bad as far as a price. This is labeled as it's going to be free to play. Might be a mislabel. I do own a decent amount of Sonic games. They're not particularly great ever, but +1 the Allied Officer.
Your mission is to come back alive. You're done for. Watch your surroundings. Don't fall out
Let's
of
go
line.
ahead and kill that.
Too slow.
Attack.
Too slow.
Attack. And attack. Let's see. Some of these, like Sonic Forces, probably still not worth it. Yakuza 0 for like $5 is probably a great deal. Super Monkey Ball. I didn't really know there was a Super Monkey Ball on Steam. Let's see. Endless Legend Empire Edition doesn't look interesting. Vanquish for $5, probably worth it. I'm not sure I really want to play the Shenmue games at this point. Here's Golden Axe. But yeah. Sega has its offerings, and they're not going to drastically change their offerings anytime soon. If anything, Sega has really dropped the ball as far as maintaining so give me Ward. This would do something else. Well,
Our melody will bring courage to all.
and then
It won't be long now.
evolve
I've got 8 transformations
fall out
up
of
my
line.
sleeve.
this and this.
I shall give birth
So
to a
yeah,
new
like
world.
2 Points Hospital here
Retreat.
is it's just free items for 2 Points Hospital. So you would have to actually add, like you can add that to your account. See, what do? You just go, yes, I have that installed.
Be gone.
But I wouldn't be surprised if even the promotional stuff requires you to own the game.
Our melody will never fade.
And then, like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, I already own as part of this Sega Mega Drive and Genesis Classic thing. So that's like, there's only still one consistent way in which you actually interact with the old Sega Genesis Master Drive content. Let's see. This, and this,
The world cycles on.
and then what I want to do is
Die, cretin.
this one,
Oops, wrong.
and then that one,
That's enough for
Loyalty
me.
is ironclad.
and then in the turn.
Loyalty is ironclad.
Yeah. Catherine Classic has been lower historically. It's been at $6.79 on the 11th of February at 68% discounted, where it's only 50% discounted. So they're not even really giving a major discount there, even though it's an older game.
My armor's been pierced.
Whereas Yakuza 0 has been at $4.99 on March, but it's $4.99 now, so it wouldn't be a terrible deal to get Yakuza 0. Although maybe 0 doesn't matter as much as maybe you just jump to Kiwami, and maybe Kiwami makes it less realistic. And honestly, I'm not sure I can fully get around the idea of doing the Yakuza series anyways. Let's see, 1, 2, 3,
Steel yourself.
kill that.
Die, cretin.
That's enough for
Loyalty
me.
is ironclad.
Yeah.
That's enough for
Loyalty
me.
is ironclad.
And then Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz here is mixed reviewed, so it's not even selling particularly well. And it probably just does not play well in PC. People are unhappy about Super Monkey Ball 1. And 1 and 2. Yeah, the first two games seem to be their main complaint. Yep. So people who are fans of the series want Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2. They don't want Banana Blitz HD. Whatever Banana Blitz HD actually is. Seems to not really matter to people.
Too slow. Steel yourself. Too slow.
That is just one of those examples of setting expectations and maybe not making a sequel to a game that's beloved if you can't live up to it. Gamatsu has the same article here. Golden Axe, the single level prototype of a cancelled Golden Axe reboot, is coming to PC on October 18th for a limited time. And then it will only be available until October 19th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. So, yeah. That seems like that's a kind of ridiculous limitation. And it seems like it is just ridiculousness. But then here we have Streets of Kamurocho, a mashup of Streets of Rage and Yakuza, is coming to PC on October 17th for 11 limited time. It too is going away on October 19th. Interesting. I was not aware of that one. Okay. Let's do this.
I always enter with a wink. No one is cuter than me.
And then this.
The uncharted desert awaits.
And then this.
It all ends here.
I'm ready for more. What do we have
And
here?
then this.
No one is cuter than me.
And then in the turn. So yeah, that puts you in kind of a weird position if either one of those games are actually for sale, but I think they're going to be free. Next we have a game on Steam called Palindrome Syndrome Escape Room, which looks like a 3D escape room. Palindromes are words that are the same forward as backwards, and I don't see any evidence that there actually are any of those in this game. And it does seem like it's just a collection of puzzle games for $6.99. English full audio and a bunch of other languages. It looks good enough that it deserves a follow, at least. There may be no real reason to go any further than that, but let's do this.
I shall give birth to a new world. The world cycles on.
No one is cuter than me.
Okay. 2 damage.
My legacy is written in blood.
Thus the world begins.
No one is cuter than me. Lovely.
Stop!
Time to spice things up.
Get it down to 9. There we go. Let's see. Tencent owned Shark Mob opens a AAA studio in London. So perhaps Tencent is trying to expand its UK library of companies they own. Probably not a lot to focus on that until something more impactful is to be said, but it is of course always concerning to see Chinese run Tencent managing to grow its stranglehold on everybody, on the video game world. 1 damage, 2, restore, rush, 1-1.
Have faith.
Okay, rush, and then 1-1.
Just as planned.
Play that,
The world cycles on.
and then do that. And then end the turn. This grand acquisition that gives you all these spells would be really, really useful in a runecraft deck where you're just trying to cast spells all over the place. But it would have to be a runecraft deck designed specifically to also last a very, very long time. Right to the end. I don't know what the missions really are, so I'm gonna go back to Portalcraft. Next we have a game on Steam here called Vigil, the Longest Night, which just does look like it is a nicely visually polished, gory, horrific Metroidvania game. It's being tagged as RPG. Yeah, kind of feels like a Castlevania game, certainly. It's 1979 English and a bunch of other languages. It actually looks like a real game, so I'm going to put it on the follow list. You also see that it has a positive rating, which for a just released game or just out of early access game, even, that is a good sign. Next we have a game on Steam called Rum Ram, which seems to be one of these player versus player Mario Party type minigame collections, which we see a lot of these. $7.99, online PvP only. There's no way I'd ever play that, and your experience is going to drastically be different just based on who you're playing against. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Turn, One-Way Trip. Looks like it's a visual novel, but it's being tagged as a horror puzzle game, and it does seem like there might actually be a little bit more of a experience here than just a visual novel. It says it's a 2D side-scrolling puzzle game. It's $10.79, bunch of languages. Yeah, it deserves to be on the follow list. Although the graphics, these could be pre-bought characters, and the actual background gameplay characters don't look amazing, and so there's a lot of opportunity for it to not be that interesting.
If I were
Thy little canary.
That's where the reviews really come into play. Gamma Sutra has a blog here. 10 mg or milligrams, maybe, invading Steam with microgames to make a point. Maybe that means 10-minute games, which the goal is not to make money or immediately convince people that short experimental games are worthwhile. It would be great if that happened, but 10 minigames is primarily about shifting the overtone window of game length discussion, which inherently that just turns me off from reading any more of this article, because it really is just like, oh yeah, I think I'm an intellectual, so I'm going to put 10-minute games on Steam and probably charge way too much, and then say, I'm doing it to make a political statement. Aren't I so good? Aren't I so special? And yeah, I'm just not willing to buy what they're selling, frankly.
welcome to the city of hopes and dreams. To die
There's,
or not to die.
and then do that. Yeah. Inherently, without reading any more of this blog, because it's a blog and I don't really care to read people's blogs anyways, because their opinions are their own, and like most opinions, they stink. But inherently, the argument here is that games should cost more money and give you less time of entertainment. And there's just not a way to quantify that. And frankly, I don't think there's a way for people to consistently even experience that. It's just not reality. People have a consistent amount of time in their life, and if you are going to actively try and charge more money for less time, then you are reducing the value, and there's no way of getting around that. There's no way of arguing against it. There's no way of making an argument for that until you get past the point of a get to like a post-scarcity society where people don't really have money and they have just time, or possibly somehow give people infinite amounts of time also, which is pretty much impossible to do.
Welcome to the city of hopes and dreams.
Solve.
Welcome to the city of nightmares
1,
and despair.
2, 3. And then all of these would leave. So instead we play this. And then attack.
No, don't leave me! Don't leave me!
Moving on, we have a game on Steam called X-Dasher, which seems to be a top-down twin-stick shooter game. And doesn't look particularly that interesting, so I'm not going to put it on the fall list. Check Raptor's review for a game called Werewolf the Apocalypse Heart of the Forest, which looks like a video game, but it looks like it's a text-based video game if I was to guess. Which they gave an 8.0, but I honestly don't think I would want to play a text-based game that just looks like this. It seems like you have a few meters, but that just is not visually interesting enough to me. Let's see. Rush.
My master?
And then this. How do we want to play this?
Cleansing mode.
That.
Master.
And then that.
Oh, that's the
No.
good pain.
See, next we have a game on Steam called Burger Joint, which looks like terrible graphics. For $2.99 English, allegedly full audio. No more time really needs to be submitted to that. That just looks so horrible. I know I wouldn't want to ever play it. Next we have a game called Tale of the Apocalypse, which probably is an asset flip survival game looking at the user interface. And like all asset flip survival games, they are just getting better and better looking. Early access, $22.49. English, allegedly full audio. We have hit a point that
Well, there are 1,000 ways to die.
Accept harmony.
we have hit a point now where survival games are not anywhere close to
One hit kill.
I'll live again.
the survival games aren't anywhere close to what is even popular anymore. So the idea of there being another Minecraft or I don't even know if there was anything past Minecraft coming out and being successful, is kind of crazy. I think Raft might succeed, but that's pretty much it. I know that there was one that seemed like it might succeed here and there, but never really seemed to gain enough traction. Gamasutra is trying to do a different thing here with a GDC Masterclass. The thing about Masterclasses, as I understand them, is that they were fairly expensive things. If they're talking about masterclass.com, maybe they're just using the phrase Masterclass in general. If this is all free, it might be interesting to game programmers to sit through, and it does give them something they can do instead of it does give them certainly something to do while they're unable to do anything else, but that's about all I would say.
You will atone for wasting my time.
Right, do this.
Begin.
The sheer hubris of what's your price?
Good luck.
And what do we want to do? See, I keep thinking that this would invoke, but it never seems to actually invoke, which is a little weird, but whatever. It does seem like once you play this is probably a game-ending card, and I definitely haven't had too many game-ending cards in my decks. Next we have a game on Steam here called Hardcore Prologue, which is a demo, and frankly there's just no reason to put demos on a fall list. It doesn't look terrible, but it also does seem like it is all over the place, and it's a side-scrolling shooter, maybe platformer, and then you run into one screen where you're playing a card game, which doesn't make a lot of sense. They're calling it an RPG bullet hell sandbox survival game. That seems all over the place as far as what is your game actually going to have as an identity. Alright, let's do this and see what happens.
This town eats good folk for breakfast. This town eats good folk for breakfast.
Why did that not activate? I'm confused there. Because I guess it has to cost 5 play points
I shall give birth to
and not enhance to 5 play points. Interesting. Next we have Runescape on Steam all of a sudden. I thought it kind of already would have been on Steam. It's kind of hard to justify playing a free-to-play RuneScape game that then you have to buy all these starter packs for. It's an MMO. It doesn't seem like it has any in-app purchases though. It's already rated very positively, so did it just come out of early access now? I don't know. But it definitely isn't something I could put on my fault list because I'm not going to play an MMO. There's also a point in the video where they were showing cell phone interfaces, and when you look at the graphics, it does seem to be more targeting something you can play on a cell phone. And certainly would have to think about whether it's a smart move or perhaps a nefarious move to have an MMO on a mobile platform, potentially allowing even more people to play forever. Let's see. Seven play points. that would do everything except for kill that. We could do 5 here. And when I played this, that would do 5 play points to that.
Engine, accelerator, compasso!
The world cycles on.
Yep. Still not really winning as well as I'd like to. Let's hop back into the other style of gameplay. Let's come over here to Unlimited and just try Unlimited Forestcraft. Next we have a game on Steam here called Loot Grinder Simulator, which obviously is just a low effort achievement game. It's already mixed reviewed. There's nothing there that needs to be talked about. Next we have a game on Steam called Circle Up, which looks like it is just a jumping game, platforming, if I was to guess.
Time for me to prove myself.
Which,
The
yeah,
forest is angry.
it's a Flappy Bird in vertical form for $5.39, which is ridiculously expensive. Next we have a game on Steam here called Bunker Defense, which almost certainly is a
And carry on.
tower defense game. And I have no interest in tower defense games. Yeah, I really feel like survival games probably at this point should just be in the same category as tower defense games, where there's just no chance really that any game that is described as a survival game is going to make it to the wish list.
Let's play. Let's play.
And certainly there are certain categories and styles of games that I just came into my YouTube channel saying, yeah, I'm never going to play those kinds of games. I've kind of even backtracked on some of those rules though. Like I originally said I would never play something like Battlefield, the military first-person shooters. At this point, I'm willing to give a Battlefield game a chance and do the single-player part. I'm still not willing to do the multiplayer Gamer Bro experience, but yeah, I'm totally way more willing to play something like Halo, all the Halo games than I was originally. Which I guess that means my opinions have evolved, or my willingness to try something have evolved. I may very well play Halo and just go, yeah, this is what I thought Halo was, and it's exactly what I expected. Next we have a horror game here called Re-Mol Mock. That seems definitely not to be English. There's 3 or 4 different enemies chasing you, which seems a little different for a horror game. And that does seem like it is a flashlight style horror game. I'll put it on the fall list just because I see decent visuals and different things. It's Russian full audio. More than likely this will get reviewed and it actually isn't anywhere as good as it seems. But this actually does seem like you're going through a fairly creepy, I would assume it is something like a abandoned Russian hospital.
Hey, let's play. You're done for. Yeah. Oh, come on.
You see, if I win with this fairies deck in Unlimited, it really just goes to show that I have better balanced my fairies deck in Unlimited than I have in rotation, because it's not like I'm playing a ton of cards that are out of rotation.
Step forward with pride.
TechRaptor has an article here. Mass Effect Legendary Edition has been rated in Korea, which, okay, a bundle of, I assume, the first 3 Mass Effect games. But maybe they're going to even remake Mass Effect 1 to be closer to Mass Effect 3 in the way it played, which actually wouldn't be a bad idea.
Pale this
You are truly remarkable.
Because the Mass Effect series did have that as a problem, if I recall correctly, where Mass Effect 1 was fairly different in the way it controlled where the button layout was, at least, compared to Mass Effect 2. And Mass Effect 2 was much more liked. Here's that game Accident. We had seen this before, and I thought I put it on the follow list, but apparently I didn't. But it is now looking a little bit more like a game where you are going through different things, trying to save people in accidents, which is an interesting idea, certainly. This still very well may be just a asset flip bad game, but I'm willing to put it on the follow list. It's a great idea, though, frankly. Having just kind of generic 3D scenes as an ambulance personnel, as a first responder, and then having the player do multiple scenes of figuring out what's going on and using that to their advantage. Let's see. I don't know why I played it that way. I could have played it the opposite way and done a little bit better. But yep. I don't know how many levels and scenes you could do, though, without having to spend a lot of time programming and animating things. At a certain point, if you're going to play as a first responder, ambulance type person, you probably need to put a driving mechanic in it just to stretch the game out, and have a racing mechanic where you have to actually race to the crash scene, and that determines how much time you have left, with a level of replayability there where you could go back and do the race a second time if you're too slow. This to this.
Not one for pranks.
And then this. I could have actually done that first, then I would have had 3 of them instead.
It won't be long now. Soon, maybe.
There we go. And just play that anyways. Next we have a game on Steam called Frostfire Planet. There was a game that looked exactly like this about a year or 2 ago, and seems like someone is taking that same concept, although maybe they're doing something completely different with it. It still doesn't look particularly interesting, the idea of these tiny planets and that the entire game level is just going to be rotated around the sphere. $4.49, a limited number of characters, English only. It'd be funny if this game, the other game, was recommended. Yeah, nobody's mentioning the other game, but the other game looked a lot more visually polished. A certain level, if a game stole the visuals of a different game and kind of copied that, but then made a completely different style of gameplay, that's way less objectionable than having a game that looks completely different but plays exactly the same. That being said, there are some examples like The Binding of Isaac where it probably would benefit The Binding of Isaac if they did have a completely different visual style of the exact same game, and let some third-party company just reskin Binding of Isaac to something that is a little less Christian themed and more just standard fantasy themed. And I bet there probably is some kind of mod out there that would do something like that. Next, we have a game on Steam called Night Check the Beginning. I assume that's how you would pronounce that. Nichik. It looks like it's a platformer slash, like, it's tagged RPG. Maybe it's a little bit like Spelunky. And I didn't really like Spelunky, but this looks a little bit different than that too. $13.49 English and Czech. So yeah, I'm willing to put this on the follow list as I fall down the ranked list in Shadowverse. Let's see, Battle Again, Swordcraft. TechRaptor has an article here. New Blood is no longer working on Maximum Action, a game I've never heard of, and a company I've never heard of. And from the screenshot, it doesn't look particularly interesting either. Gamatsu has Sniper Elite 4 for Switch launching November 17th. Which, okay, I don't know if the Sniper Elite series really is going to sell amazingly well on the Switch, but pretty much everything seems to. Here we have a game called Kill Streak, which is showing off a lot of menus and options and customizations, which does make it seem like it is more than just a asset flip first person shooter, but I still kind of feel like it's probably an asset flip first person shooter. Let's see, it's online player versus player though, so there might be something here. If we look at the publisher though, they haven't published anything else. So you'd definitely be taking your chances on a game like that. Particularly since it would need to find a way to have a huge player base. And I don't know how you're going to have a huge player base on such a generic game. Gamatsu has an article. Chris Tales has been delayed to early 2021. It's no longer coming out November 17th. I don't recognize this game though, so see if we can, like, they make these trailers so quickly and then they just don't have the game. Seems like there's some kind of time mechanic and some kind of like choose your outcome with some RPG elements. Interesting. Yeah, I don't recall ever seeing this, and that's always shocking that something could come out a month from now, potentially, and I just wouldn't have heard about it, even though I seem to spend an inordinate amount of time. I'm spending like 9 hours a week, usually, minimum, to looking at new games and looking at announcements for new games, and I'm still capable of missing things. I mean, how can an average person, somebody who has to work 40 plus hours a week at a job or at school, how can they ever have any hope whatsoever to see anything other than what is just being shoved in your face by either mainstream video game journalism or by a massive amount of advertising? And yeah, that issue might be slightly fixed as we get less and less games coming out, but it still doesn't seem like it's being completely fixed. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Boris the Rocket, which seems to be kind of like a puzzle escape game around the standard jokey Russian concept. It just doesn't look very polished visually. It's $8.99. There's some other games they're trying to bundle it. It's English and full Russian, and the graphics just don't look good enough. Let's see.
Now quiet. Now furious.
Let's speed things up.
It's not enough yet.
Slow.
Behind you.
There's this. Gematsu has Trials of Mana version 1.10 update now available. Adds the no future and expert difficulty settings. Like, I do think I might end up just playing Trials of Mana and kind of ignoring the, I think, 2 predecessors to Trials of Mana. You might just get away with that. Let's see. This guy is super powerful.
Time to clock in, lazy bones.
No, literally.
Interesting. I don't know if I can survive long enough here at this rate. Allied officer follower. I mean, I can do that, certainly.
Raise your blade.
It's not enough yet.
And
Too
then
slow.
that lets me kill that.
Can I haunt you too?
And then
You're done for.
evolve that.
Till I turn to ash and burn.
That. That. And that. I still could easily lose here. Next we have a game on Steam called You Can Do It, which clearly is just another getting over it with Benet Foddy type game and does not look visually polished.
You look kinda haunted.
$3.99 English only. If anything, Getting Over It was a parody of these low effort games that was done so well and polished so well that it superseded its own superseded the fact that it was a parody. Whereas I would argue all the other games really are not high enough quality to justify being on the fall list or being played. Next we have a game called The Heroic Legend of Igarnia. Interesting. And let's see, it says it's a turn-based tactics 2D grand strategy game that's in early access for 11.04. It's Chinese full audio and English subtitle support. Let's see. For the screenshots that are loading up, it kind of feels like a gacha game that then turns into a very boring looking like war simulation game. Yeah, it does kind of feel like each of these characters might be gacha characters. Are there in-app purchases? No. But it just doesn't look polished enough to really look like something I'd want to play. From what I'm hearing, the Chinese gacha game, what is that, Genshin Impact, I believe, which is becoming somewhat popular from what I hear, or it seems to be very popular. It seems like they only have like five tier top tier characters, and once you've unlocked those top 2 characters, there is at the moment really no reason to continue rolling in what they call making wishes, just purchasing things, because all you're going to get are either copies of those same characters, or which might give them a boost to their XP, but nothing else, or you're going to just get a bunch of equipment, which I think kind of ruins the idea of what a gacha game is. I don't want to roll in the same roles for equipment as I do for characters. Yeah, me personally, I really have no desire in a gacha game that does not have pretty visuals behind the items you can collect, which means mostly pretty anime girls with the occasional anime boy. But yeah, there seems to be a lack of content. Now, that could change at any second. They could add 5 new characters every month, and that's certainly what the game I play, the gacha game I play, Destiny Child, adds at least 1 or 2 new characters, or one new character and new skins for old characters. So there's always something to do. Except for at the moment, like I'm saving up my crystals, which are the currency that you can buy, but you can also earn them fairly easily. Unlike Shadowverse, where you can never get the crystals unless you pay. Let's see, originally cost 3 points.
Just follow my tune, and away we go.
Hope that works.
Stop!
Whatever he plays next is going to be just really overpowered. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Atelier Ryza 2 Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy introduces a real-time tactics battle system and sub-characters. Which, interesting, I guess that means that the gameplay might shift slightly in Atelier Ryza 2, which might take the entire series of Atelier in a different direction to possibly being slightly more popular. Although, once again, that's an example of a series that is going to need a lot more advertising to become well known in the minds of Japanese people. I mean, in the minds of non-Japanese people. Next, we have a game on Steam called Robot Rogue, which looks like a very badly designed dungeon crawler roguelike. Don't know why you would need so much of the screen devoted to a map and text. It's $7.99 English only. This character, our opponent, is thinking. Gamatsu has Azure Lane Crosswave for Switch launching on February 2021 in the West, which is another Azure Lane game. The last one that came out for PC was not particularly well received because it was just the cell phone game basically being ported to the PC, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly the same thing that's happening now. So apparently they decided they had lost, which finally, we still are in a weird position where I'm barely getting 3 quests done over the course of 3 days. It's very inconsistent. Swordcraft or Shadowcraft. Let's see, Gamatsu has a game called Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, is adding a Switch version. I'm not really sure what kind of game this is. It sounds like it's a fairly funny named title game, but
You must die.
I don't know
Father,
if this really is kind of like a Zelda game or if it's closer to just a standard adventure game. What's funny is I don't think this has been on PC because I feel like a name like that would have caught my attention earlier. Next we have a game on Steam called Jack Walker Ethereal, which is being tagged as an action-adventure RPG game. I feel like my computer is probably locking up a little bit because it's so hot right now. Yeah, this is a VR game, 1004. Yeah, I don't know why my air conditioner is not coming on. I should investigate that.
To arms, brother. At
It
your service.
definitely feels like it should be on. And it should have come on like an hour ago. Gotta hit the intern while I'm... Yeah, it says it's 79 degrees in the room, and it definitely feels more than that. I don't know if it's a humidity thing or what. I also moved the heater. I need to move the thermostat, the remote thermostat, back to being closer to the PC, because whatever the PC thinks it is what it is as far as I'm concerned.
To arms, brother.
At your service.
But yeah, I've noticed a couple of hitches happening.
No one gets past me.
This
And
is our way out.
I imagine that's heat related, and not that I'm pushing my computer too hard. Jake Walker Ethereal though. It looks like a VR game that deserves a follow. It's early access, it's 10.04, it's English only. It may very well be nothing. That is a possibility too. Next we have a game on Steam called Biomass, which if the screenshots will load, we'll look at more. $13.49, English only. Seems to be like a side-scrolling hack and slash game. It probably isn't enough here to put this on the fall list, but I'll be generous. Right.
Is that a human?
You're done for.
I'm done sticking my head in the cloud. I told you
I'm
to
gonna do
leave.
this.
No one gets
then-
past me.
1,
This is our way out.
2,
No one gets past me.
3,
Out like a lamb.
This is our way
and
out.
then that. See, next we have a game on Steam called City 13, which
My swordsmanship is
it's a little bit harder to justify playing something that's
Why'd it have to be
cartoony
a
like
clear
this.
day?
Apparently this is supposed to be a hardcore 2D platformer, which are not the kind of games I like to play. It's $1.79. It does seem like it is one of those frustration games designed to just kill you over and over again. So yeah, that's not anything I want to play.
Fear not, for I am here. This is our way out.
You're mean.
We have only a few more things to talk about today. The Haunted House of Doom on Steam, which
Want to play?
looks like it is an attempt at a Scum style point and click adventure with a lot of coloring and weird choices on the coloring. The problem mostly here is that the text is at the top taking up a lot of screen, and it kind of needs a black background so you'd be able to read it, and then the verb bar at the bottom here is taking up a ton of space, so you have less than a third of the screen even being displayed, and thus they needed to have everything be see-through, which makes it more difficult to read. This is 424 English only. I just immediately see enough problems with it that I'm not willing to go any further. Okay. If I do this, I don't get strong enough,
It won't
so I
be
have to
long
do
now.
this instead.
Fooling around. Easy does it.
Pick up your sword.
At your service.
I do not fear death. This is our way out.
Gotta love the scenic route.
So I guess that worked somewhat
I
well.
shall give birth to a new world.
Wanna know how you're gonna die?
see, +1/+1, or this. Pop this guy up. And then reduce the damage there.
Until there's world peace.
And evolve that.
It all ends here.
I shall overcome all by the Knight's Code.
Saw that
No
coming.
one gets past me.
Easy does it.
There we
Gotta
go.
love the scenic route.
Next we have a game on Steam called Blockbusters VR, which looks like a VR Tetris type game. It doesn't look particularly interesting. It's $5.99, English only. Yep. Nothing more to say about that. Let's see. 4 defense to your leader. Or you can evolve it.
May all life prosper and be blessed.
Okay.
By the Knight's
Kill
Code.
this one.
The world cycles on.
Easy does it.
And kill this one. Actually, I think I could have just won at that point.
My guitar gently beats.
No one gets past me.
Glory!
Yeah, I think I could have just won at that point, and I messed up. Oops. I should have paid more attention. CheckRaptor has an article here. The Legend of Zelda: The Missing Link has been DMCA'd by Nintendo. Another fan-made game biting the dust, as it were. I won't even show this
fate
trailer.
is unjust.
This, I assume, it does look like is using a lot of art assets from Ocarina of Time. But yeah. Meanwhile, we don't have anything that isn't just Breath of the Wild to compare to in that, so let's see. Bush Drain. You need this to be able to do a bunch of damage.
I want to see those smiles.
Yep. Nintendo in particular is just going to keep on DMCAing and suing people and forever until they until they become nothing other than a non-acting party and stop even bothering to create new content. And it seems like that is the way they're going to go, because they're just too slow and too small-minded to go back and do anything with the other with their older content. And when they do anything with their older content, it is always lazy money, cash grabs. And Nintendo has kind of consistently been about the lazy money, cash grabs since basically Pokemon originally came out. Like, on a rare occasion you'll get 1 or 2 tentpole games that are actually something that they put their effort into. And this very well may be a thing that they've just raised their standards so high. But more and more it's just trying to sell compilations and sell emulated versions of old games, or just not sell anything at all, and only sell hardware, and even the hardware is not particularly well designed. Moving on, Roblox has quietly submitted draft registration for a proposed public offering. Oddly, I suspect by the time they get around to the public offering, people will have lost all interest and hype around Roblox, so I imagine they will have missed out on a decent amount of money that they could have raised for that. Of course, Roblox and the creators of Roblox almost certainly will never create anything else that's of any worth mention. I'm not even sure Roblox is really worth mentioning anymore. TechRaptor with their cross advertisement has Nutaku's versus Tails X takes your waifus to war. It's Tails X, comma, takes your waifus to war. Yeah, this does just look like your standard, like, free-to-play characters RPG. But I would have to say it does seem standard fare for these kinds of games too. Nutaku games to not really ever get any support. College Days, which I've fallen down to checking it maybe once a week, and I'm just trying to wrap up, and I'm not even checking it fast enough to wrap up the last few things. It really hasn't gotten any kind of extra content at all. It seems to be completely abandoned, less than six months out, unless there is going to just be a major update for November.
The ordained hour has arrived.
Let's see. Gamasutra has this blog, the weirdest Steam refund messages and lessons for game devs, which I didn't know that you could set refund messages here. I guess the people who ask for refunds can say the reasons why they want a refund, and I guess on occasion they do get the purchaser saying something there.
Is that a human?
You're done for.
I'm done sticking my... I told you to leave. I failed. This
Take that.
bears further study.
Moving on, we have a game called Craftlands Workshop with an E, the funny indie capitalist RPG trading adventure. That's a very long title.
I travel in search of the unknown.
There's a decent amount of visuals here. It's not particularly the style I like. It's very blocky, low polygon. It's English only. I'm gonna put this on the fall list just in case it gets reviewed really well. Although I would be hard pressed to find an argument there.
The fishies are dancing. I guard Otohime.
Okay.
It won't be long now. Time to see what I can. Let's have some fun.
Get rid of those.
Bears further study.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Cat President 2 for Political Revolution. This looks like a joke troll game, and apparently there was a first game there that didn't ever get any reviews. Is this that same publisher that does... No, it's not the publisher I'm thinking of, but you can see that all of their games are joke troll games. And honestly, I think there would just have to be a little bit more to a story like that than just having the having a cat as a president. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get this done today. We have just a few more things and I just want to wrap up. We've been going barely 2 hours and 20 more minutes. According to Gamatsu, Axiom Verge 2 has been delayed to the first half of 2021. More and more we will see more of that. Axiom Verge. Yeah, Axiom Verge is the game I covered that was a Metroidvania game. I didn't really like it, though. It wasn't doing anything unique, and it wasn't doing anything that I felt like was really different, and I think the story just had some major problems. Next, we have a game on Steam called Zombie Hills. I don't even remember what I really thought of Vaccine Verge, and I barely played that a year ago. Zombie Hills looks like it's an asset flip game where you're just players fighting each other. $14.99 English Italian, that seems way too expensive. Player versus player. Yeah. Next, we have a game on Steam called Vol Complexity, which seems to be a puzzle game, block pushing puzzle game that's zoomed out too much for its own good. $1.99 English and German. Yeah, you hit these logs and then it spins the puzzles around. There's another game like this, and I wouldn't be surprised if people have stolen puzzles from other games that are exactly like this as far as block pushing. Next we have a game called Vectro Mirror, which seems to be a first-person something. Precision platformer runner is what it's being tagged as. Let's see, yeah. It does look like a parkour game. That's probably not my bag. The visuals there are just not the right visuals for a parkour game like this. And oddly, the fact that there are asset flip parkour games more and more is always something that confuses me. Early access $4.95 English. I don't think I'll put that on the fall list. Oddly, not VR. I would have kind of thought it would have been VR. Here's that game, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest, which is just a text game. Yeah. It's rated very positively there, so I'm going to put it on the fall list and just think about it. But I also wonder if Werewolf the Apocalypse fans may have just driven up the ratings, and once average players start playing it, that does feel like that's something that could easily happen, is that you get your rabid fan base of 1,000 players purchasing your video game, and then it starts getting suggested to regular people, and they go, no, actually we don't like this type of game. And at a certain point then you have to question, as the game developer, are you targeting the general gaming audience or are you targeting your fan base? And both are acceptable, but you have to plan accordingly based on who you're targeting, because it can't be either or. It needs to be one or the other. Being a mushy middle game is the thing that'll kill you. Next we have a game called Day Scream, which looks like it's a lot of horror visuals, probably asset flip horror visuals, but it seems like that's a little bit more than just a no, it probably is just an asset flip first person horror game. Early access, English only. I'll be generous and put it on the fall list, but this is definitely one of those games where I'll come back and look at it 4 months from now and question my own sanity as to why I even bothered to put it on the fall list. Next we have a game on Steam called Unmemory, which is a investigation interactive fiction horror game. It's a text game though. Yeah, I don't think I can justify playing something like that. $8.49 English only. See, the difference between like Her Story and this is Her Story had the characters talking a lot of the time and video footage, whereas if I was to try to cover this, I would have to read everything out loud or not read everything out loud. Neither one of those is going to be a very bad experience for everybody involved, so it's just better not to play them, and frankly it's not my style of game I want to play anyways. Next we have a game on Steam here called Poultry Parade, which is obviously just an infinite runner frustration platforming type game. It's 59 cents, 50 achievements, clearly an achievement game, English only. They're comparing it to DuckTales and Cuphead, which I think are very bad comparisons. And then that brings us to the Humble Bundle, which I bet there are no new bundles. I bet there won't be any new bundles for possibly the rest of the month. One special day bundle. I may have missed that other, the Let's Fight bundle. Yeah, the Let's Fight bundle has 5 days left. And that's pretty much it. Let me go and look at my Twitter feed and see if I've got any new tweets that really matter. There's a comic book bundle called Terrifying Tales that seems to have a bunch of Japanese manga horror stories in ebook format, which, yeah, I don't know. I probably have lost base on what the age limit would be appropriate for people into horror manga, particularly in the West. I imagine a 12-year-old reading a horror manga in Japan, nobody would bat an eye, whereas a 12-year-old reading the exact same horror manga in the West, people would say, oh, this kid's demented or crazy in some way. So I would say maybe 15-year-olds in the West are probably the one. Yeah, Gamasutra has a blog here, how to get on the good side of media and streamers, which, alright, that is the cronyism, but that is also their job as potentially an advertiser for a game. It really isn't the fault of the game creators that they try to buddy up and be cronyistic with streamers and the mainstream video game media. It's the fault of the streamers and the mainstream video game media for not being professional and maintaining objectivity. Seriously, like, that's it. There was literally this game called Modern Arena, which is obviously a low effort asset flip top down twin stick shooter game that's coming soon. And then we haven't seen any adult games in this couple of days. You have this game called Cake Bash, although I really wouldn't be too worried about that. Maybe perhaps it's just an overreaction of so many adult games being greenlit before. I kind of like the idea of foods and cakes fighting each other, but this really is just a player versus player game again, which would require a lot of other people to be able to play and a lot of other people to be online, and the odds are just low. Okay, here's the blog of how to get on the good side of media and streamers. Make them happy. No staggered embargoes. Streaming music rights also came up a lot. Let's see. Understand your audio rights issues for YouTube streamers. That is a big issue, certainly. To constantly get content ID to streams. A call for your wishlist sales and other data. I don't know why media or streamers would like that. Game Discovery News Roundup. I'm just reading the titles there. Well, I can't disagree with audio rights and streaming music rights, certainly. And I can certainly understand the idea of nobody wants to be second tier as far as staggered embargoes. But as a small-time YouTuber content creator, generally I just don't want to have any direct interaction whatsoever with video game developers. Like, they should just release their game as far as I'm concerned. They should release it, people should review it. At some point, if I got really, really big and I was given like early access, then I would have to disclose that early access, and that would definitely affect my opinions subconsciously, almost certainly. If I was given free copies, that I'd have to disclose that, and that would definitely affect my opinions subconsciously. So I generally just want to pay for my own games and have nothing to do with the video game developers. If at some point I was really, really good and could interview them, then perhaps I'd try to get some information out of them. But I imagine interviewing video game developers is a lot like interviewing politicians, in the sense that they will just try to pivot everything to their talking points in their advertisements, and you probably won't get any decent information out of any of the developers. Because that would be about the only thing I'd be interested in, is them going into more of a in-depth conversation about how they program and what software they use, and they probably would just come back and go, oh, well, that's all proprietary information, which is just corporate speak for saying, oh, that's all classified by a corporation that doesn't have the right to classify things, but basically means they won't talk about it, and that would be the only thing that would really interest me. Well, yep, that's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have